Next up is Arthur's request, and among the things he's asked me to cover, we'll be taking a look at Isle of Dogs by Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson is one of those directors with a very distinct style. Many of his films contain themes of grief, loss of innocence, and dysfunctional families, all explored with a dash of comedy. I can't say that I'm familiar with his work, since the only movie I saw from him was his adaptation of Roald Dahl's Fantastic Mr. Fox. Like that movie, Isle of Dogs is done with stop-motion animation. Most of it probably from Indian Paintbrush Productions, rather than Anderson's American Empirical Pictures. Now let's take a trip to the Isle of Dogs and see what it's like. So right away, this movie goes all in with its Japanese theming by how they present the different acts of this story. We begin with the prologue titled The Boy Samurai and the Headless Ancestor. It begins at a shrine that's heavily adorned with cat icons. This is to set up backstory time as this one-eyed dog explains what his kind was like before domestication.
Free dogs roamed at liberty, marking their territory. Seeking to extend its dominion, the cat-loving Kobayashi dynasty declared war and descended in force upon the unwary four-legged beasts.
Really? We just got done with one movie that painted cats as mostly bad. I don't need another one. But there's this young boy samurai who decided to betray the Kobayashi to save the dogs. The backlash results in the forcible domestication of all the dogs. But at least they survived. Then, oh, right. Most of the dialogue is in Japanese and occasionally comes with English translations. Most of the time, anyway. Only the dogs speak English because they're the main focus of this story. I'm not wholly comfortable with an American movie appropriating a lot of Japanese aesthetics for its story, though I'll get to more of that at the end. We then fast forward to the year 2038 in the fictional Megasaki City. According to Mayor Kenji Kobayashi, voiced by Kunichi Nomura, the dogs have been catching a canine flu that might pass on to humans. So what does he propose to do?
The expulsion and containment of all breeds, both stray and domesticated. By official decree, Trash Island becomes an exiled colony, the Isle of Dogs.
Title. I'm not gonna finish. Instead, he gets dissenting opinions from Professor Watanabe and his assistant, Yoko Ono. The latter voiced by the actual Yoko Ono. Funny. They say that they can find a cure in 6 months, but get rejected.
As a gesture of public solidarity, Mayor Kobayashi is calling upon his assistant Hatchet Man, Major Domo.
Hatchet Man? Are you seriously just gonna blurt out that Major Domo is just gonna carry out the mayor's orders? Oh wait, this is an authoritarian city. Of course they don't care. The mayor is even deporting his own guard dog named Spots. He's the first of many dogs to go on this trolley to be taken to the Isle of Dogs. You know, maybe basing an entire political system on picking between dogs and cats is a terrible idea. As more dogs arrive, we learn about the various symptoms of the flu and how the dogs are fighting amongst themselves over limited resources. We also get shown to some dogs that actually have names, like Rex, voiced by Edward Norton, Duke, voiced by Jeff Goldblum, King, voiced by Bob Balaban, Boss, voiced by Bill Murray, and most importantly, Chief, voiced by Bryan Cranston.
Wait a second. Before we attack each other and tear ourselves to shreds like a pack of maniacs, let's just open the sack first and see what's actually in it. It might not even be worth the trouble.
Well, nice to see that they could stop fighting for a bit and...
A pickle, tin of sardine bones, a pile of broken eggshells, an old smushed up rotten gizzard with maggots all over it.
Okay, it's worth it.
Okay, that was funny. But that's not! Maybe it's been forever since I've seen Mr. Fox, but I think this movie might be a tad more violent. Each of the named dogs has a backstory, and Rex feels especially pessimistic about the future of dogs. Chief doesn't feel the same way.
You make me sick. I've seen cats with more balls than you dogs.
Okay, that's a good line. He certainly has the fortitude, since he came here as a stray dog. He also encounters a dog that catches his eye named Nutmeg, voiced by Scarlett Johansson.
How'd she keep her fur so clean? There's no shampoo on Trash Island.
Good question. Anyway, a plane crashes onto the island with someone emerging from the wreckage. This leads us to part 1, The Little Pilot. The dogs see the survivor's helmet and learn that his name is Atari Kobayashi. He's a boy looking for spots. But what's with that bolt sticking out of his helmet?
Wow.
Jeez, the pain these characters go through is nuts. Back at a sumo wrestling competition, Kobayashi hears about the disappearance of Atari. We cut back to the boy, and he didn't fully get the bolt out of his head, and that's for the best. Don't want the blood gushing out. He follows the dogs to where spots could be, but...
Unfortunately, nobody could figure out how to open his dog cage.
Well, that sucks! We get some backstory for Atari, a sole survivor of a bullet train accident that killed both his parents. He was then adopted by Mayor Kobayashi, his distant uncle, who made him his ward, and he received his own bodyguard dog, Spots, who's voiced by Liv Schreiber.
I'm at your service. I'll be protecting your welfare and safety on an ongoing basis. In other words, I'm your dog.
You can imagine that they formed a solid bond, especially after both receiving earpieces that seem to let them communicate with each other.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, well that was all very sad. I have to do this.
Flashback.
In other words, I'm your dog.
End of flashback.
Back in the city, Watanabe is looking for the cure for the dog flu. He's made some progress, so let's drink from vials. That seems sanitary. Back on the island, Atari and the dogs bury the skeleton before getting to work on rebuilding the plane. Except for Chief. They manage to get the plane back up and running, but then Rex sees the name tag that Boss took from the corpse and realizes something.
The wrong dog died!
Apparently, it belonged to a dog named Sport. What the hell kind of name is that? But at least Spot could still be alive, and it even might be the dog that Chief saw from a distance. Or is it? Back with the mayor, he is debriefed about the dog flu cure from Watanabe while taking a bath. Weird. But anyway, he doesn't seem to accept the results. I should be enjoying this, given how much I love Yakuza 0, but these guys give cat lovers a bad name. Oh, and Watanabe discovers the mayor's true motives towards the dogs, which we see once we cut back to the island. Yep, Robo-Dog! Okay. I love how they use 2D animation for any time they have characters displayed on a screen. I could say the same for the entire movie, as the stop motion is really well done given how the dogs have a lot of hair movement while in motion. Or even when they're stationary and the wind is blowing on them. Anyway, the dogs vote to save the boy and have Chief fight the robot. Shouldn't be too hard since they have the same fighting animation as before. I mean, it's funny. Atari is freed, and he manages to turn the robot dog docile by switching his controls. And then... I don't know, maybe a mushroom cloud wasn't the best decision there. And even though Atari is helping the dogs, Kobayashi thinks that his nephew is kidnapped by them. Bastard. Now, even though Atari clearly cares for the dogs, Chief is still slow to trust him. He walks out and has his first meeting with Nutmeg, which comes off as awkward.
You're Felix's mate.
I beg your pardon?
I mean, I think you mated with Felix, if I heard it right?
That's none of your business.
We do learn how she became a show dog against her will, and she at least shows some interest in Chief by doing one of her tricks.
I'll be spitting a 9-pound bowling ball over my head at this point, but you just have to imagine that part.
Yeah, I can picture it.
Of course. She only wants Chief to help Atari since the other dogs think he's trustworthy, and they don't change their minds when they hear that he's related to the mayor. Chief decides to go along with it. Meanwhile, Watanabe is placed under house arrest, which draws the attention of this American exchange student named Tracy, voiced by Greta Gerwig. She knows that Kobayashi is pulling these stunts to boost his re-election efforts this year, but wants to find real proof of that.
Can you prove it? I don't know.
Here we enter part 2, the search for spots. Our heroes cross through several settlements deserted by humans. It's amusing what was in Trash Island before, and it's just good scenery. This is where we learn of Chief's backstory. He was a stray that was adopted by a good and loving family at one point. But even then...
He tried to pet me. He didn't mean anything by it. He was just being friendly. Apparently, I bit him so hard, I nearly chewed his hand off. What happened? Why did I do that? To this day, I have no idea.
Damn. I guess he couldn't escape the scars of street life and overcome his fear of being touched. But at the same time, we also learn of his favorite food.
An old woman, she must have been the grandmother, brought me out a bowl of some homemade hibachi chili. Anyway, that's my favorite food I ever ate.
Heh, sad story, with a funny bit at the end. We also finally get down to the truth behind the dog flu. It's something that Kobayashi and his allies concocted to secretly infect dogs with, just to let history repeat itself with how his ancestors tried to kill all dogs. What in the holy hell is this? At this point I had to stop the movie and skip to the end to see if this resulted in retribution against cats. And it kinda does. It isn't completely made clear. But anyway, the infection was how Kobayashi would justify the creation of dog displacement camps and later kill them. The robot dogs can track down Atari because they have his blood drawn from where the bolt was. That black box is actually smuggled away by one of Tracy's friends, so now she has it. And we know now that she's the owner of Nutmeg. Back over to our heroes, they reach some sages who know of Spots. He was the first to arrive here, hence his designation as Dog Zero. But there were other dogs that were on this island before, but from a secret lab.
Some say they died away over the subsequent years, starving and forgotten. Some say they swam to the mainland, but this seems unlikely. Too far to dog battle.
I should note that Plague Dogs was an inspiration for this movie. I pray that I'll never have to cover that. In any case, our heroes learn that Spots is held captive on a nearby island by wild dogs. Before they hatch a plan to break in, we cut over to someone preparing a meal and adding a different layer of sauce on a piece of sushi. I think we can imagine what this is since the meal is going to Watanabe. Must be super strong if even a small taste test of the poison is enough to kill him. And he didn't see this coming? Back over to our heroes, they get to the smaller island through a tram. Chief and Atari get separated from the rest as their cart goes on a different path to an abandoned amusement park. Everyone else ends up in a compactor area. For some reason, Atari feels tempted to ride the pagoda slide despite his lack of height. No wonder this place fell to ruin. It's literally Action Park! Chief just leaves Atari because he's had enough of the boy, but eventually comes back when he hears him whistling that tune again. Their staying together is enough to establish some trust, and Chief even lets Atari give him a bath. After washing up, he kinda resembles Spots. Are they related somehow? This leads into part 3, the rendezvous. Chief and Atari finally reach the smaller island where they find the other dogs, all burnt out but somehow alive. But then a robo-dog spots them and warns the bad guys. Not before we see the real Spots though, and we know it's him because of a flashback.
The only reason I even said that was because we're all probably going to die out here and I'll never see him again.
Good luck to you, and watch out for the cannibal dogs.
Oh sure, that's reassuring. Anyway, he was taken by the wild dogs, and one of their leaders tried to explain that they only became cannibals once, and only out of desperation.
His name was Fuzzball, and he was the leader of our pack, and he was already in a coma from starvation.
Fair enough. If anything, the humans who experimented on you shoulder most of the blame here. Spots is freed from his cage, we learn about this other dog that he falls for, and as we go back to the present, that's kind of a funny run cycle. And he manages to dismantle the Robodogs with military-grade teeth? Hot damn, you're cool! Anyway, Spots begs Atari to relieve him of guard duty because he's actually the leader of the dog tribe now, and that his mate Peppermint is going to have pups soon. Chief goes off on Spots for just leaving behind his human owner, who risked life and limb to look for him, until it dawns on him that Spots is his older brother. Some time passes, and they receive intel from an owl that the dogs back on the other island have been placed in a displacement camp and are to be gassed to death after Kobayashi wins re-election. They decide on going back to Megasaki City and appeal to the humans.
You'll meet a bitch named Nutmeg. Tell her Chief says, I'll see you in Megasaki.
I don't think she's going anywhere, dude. But first, our heroes need to build a fleet of boats, as a play dedicated to the boy samurai is happening elsewhere. It's to commemorate Atari since everyone else thought he died, but that only increases the fervor for vengeance against all dogs from the opposition. Spots makes one more effort to give his guard dog duties to Chief, and Atari finally accepts. Right on time too, as Peppermint's litter is born, and everyone else is ready to head out. Back in the city, Tracy meets with Yoko Ono to ask about Watanabe. She confirms that he died not by suicide, but by assassination, and his cure for the dog flu would never see the light of day.
Do I have it? Do I have the story? Yes or no? On the record. I am sorry for your loss, but we both know that was no suicide. I need to prove my conspiracy theory.
Gee, I wonder who would say such a thing nowadays. Tracy convinces Yoko Ono that her boss would want the serum to be out there despite what happened to him, and she manages to get the last vial. As she rushes out with it, we enter part 4, Atari's Lantern. Kobayashi makes his speech about killing the dogs and replacing them with robots. He's won re-election, but Tracy isn't taking this lying down.
Atari was a hero. Professor Watanabe was murdered. The serum works!
This small minority of dog lovers has been sent by overseas special interest groups to agitate disorder and incite anarchy.
Only one of them is from overseas. Come to think of it, why isn't the rest of the world intervening here? Why isn't there anyone stepping in to resolve this stupid and petty farce of a crisis?
I'm the government, I'm the government, I'm the reason nothing works.
But before the mayor can push the button, Atari returns with all the dogs he's brought. This allows Tracy to administer the serum onto Chief.
My lungs feel clear. My equilibrium feels balanced. My vision is sharp as a tack for the first time in months. Wow, that's a great serum.
Well, of course it worked. It's colored blue. Wait. That's the same color as that potion from Mad Monster Party. Oops. Atari gives a heartful speech about everything he learned from being on that island, leading to a haiku to really drive the point home.
なぜ故に人類の友春に散る花
And all this is dedicated to Kobayashi despite all that he did. The mayor seems mad at first, but you could tell that he took his nephew's words to heart. He rescinds his dog ban, which angers Major Domo since, well, we need a big bad for the climax and the original one decided to step aside. Hey, if it works, it works. Spots joins in so he can use one of his exploding teeth to disable the Robodog. Spots loses an eye, Atari gets another piece of shrapnel to the head, and Major Domo manages to hit the red button to release the gas. Only for everything to malfunction? How? Oh, of course! Hacker Boy! Anyway, they rush Atari to the hospital and successfully remove the shrapnel. His kidney is also failing at this time, which is bad since he already lost one from the train accident. Kobayashi steps in to donate his kidney for his nephew, and we even see the process that I won't show. Spots is also operated on, so he gets a robotic eye later, and they both survive. Once Atari fully recovers, he takes his uncle's responsibility as mayor, since Kobayashi has been charged with conspiracy given everything that happened. Dogs are slowly cured and reintegrated into society, while the bad guys get jailed for their crimes. And for anyone who should abuse dogs?
Death penalty. That seems excessive to us. Possibly. Anyway, we should make it at least 30 days community service and a fine of no less than 250,000 yen.
I should also hope that the cats aren't mistreated because of horrible politicians, but again, this movie leaves it up in the air. Chief and Nutmeg finally get together, like their owners, Atari and Tracy.
I don't know why I bite.
I'm not attracted to tame animals.
Thank you.
Oh, and Spots lives with Peppermint and their pups under that one shrine from the beginning. That's all. So, on a personal note, I hate that the cats get punished alongside their owners, but otherwise, this is a good movie about how fascism takes power by persecuting minorities and stoking fear and hate towards them, especially if the division is manufactured from whole cloth. Seeing Chief go from being a hard-ass stray to one who can be sympathetic to humans is quite enjoyable. By the end, he's still the same dog we started with, but is willing to protect the one boy who showed compassion when no one else would. And Atari is very understanding of the dogs, even willing to let go of the first dog he loved so much. He's okay with moving on because he's found a new dog that can also be family to him after he lost his parents. That said, there's something to be wary of for how Wes Anderson was leaning heavily on Japanese settings and storytelling conventions. Tracy's presence as the most important English-speaking human, who does the most to talk sense to everyone around her, sounds way too close of a description to a white savior in other media. But other critics, Japanese or Japanese American, at least gave Anderson the benefit of the doubt when he said that he wasn't trying to paint Japan in a negative or ridiculous light. This movie is ultimately about ending tyranny against select groups of people who have less recourse to right the injustices visited upon them. And given Atari's success in turning his uncle away from his hatred of dogs, there's a hopeful message of inner redemption from those we least expect. I just find it really unnerving that an American-German movie would place the Japanese in the role of ethnic cleansers when similar and real episodes are visible in American and German history. So your mileage may vary. That aside, the movie looks great with its animation and set design. The music by Alexandre Desplat and various Japanese artists bring everything to life with their powerful instrumentals. And despite the controversy, Isle of Dogs was received really well and made back almost double its budget in grossing. I think its themes went a long way to compensate for its flaws. It's dark, depressing, oftentimes funny, and just a good movie. Before we resume Patreon requests, we need to do the bonus objective and the Christmas special. We'll see what won the poll next time.